There is no leadership. There is no leadership amongst the American Negroes. There is no equivalent of a Dr. King, a Malcolm X, an Elijah Muhammad, a Marcus Garvey in today's society. Most of the Negroes with the education and the qualifications to be a Dr. King are all paid for by the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, some political party for their own nigger trinkets, their own house, car, wife, kids. They're all about their own self, their own personal self. They're not looking out for the salvation and the betterment of their people. This society right now is a total and complete failure. Every 4 years, the same Negroes pop up. Sharpton, Farrakhan, and whoever else. Reed, the same Negro, Roland Martin, telling you to go vote for the Democrats. Not for your own benefit, so they can get a job. Working on CNN, working on TV to pay their bills. It's all about chasing this dollar while the white man is going into these black women houses, shoot them down, shoot them dead. These black women thought that Zaddy was out to protect them. The black woman is out with no protection whatsoever. They're all alone. Nobody wants them. They don't want the Negro. They don't want the Negro male who's responsible. They lay up with the thugs, the low life thugs, get pregnant, the bastard children, and they looking for Zaddy to save them and their bastard children, because it's some fantasy that was sold to them in the 1960s when we was out there in Vietnam. The black woman was given housing, food stamps, welfare to reward them for being single mothers. And this caused them to believe that the white government was their salvation, were their allies. They didn't have the mental capacity to analyze what was really going on. They couldn't foresee the future. They never read the Bible. Everything that I'm talking about, everything that happened is already written in the Bible. Isaiah chapter 3, the daughters of Zion will be destroyed. Isaiah chapter 4, after their destruction, 7 women would cling and hold on to one man to take away their shame. The book of Nehemiah, the book of Ezra, after the children of Israel was taken out of Babylon and put into Persia, King Cyrus allowed them to rebuild Jerusalem. And when they was able to go down to Jerusalem, when Darius finally agreed to finance the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the men were dealing with strange women, because for some reason it was a divide between the men and the women. So the men was dealing with strange women, and the women cried to God, telling them to put aside their strange women. This thing is repeated over and over throughout history. And if you don't heed to the history, if you don't know the history, you're doomed to repeat it. The sellout leaders. We don't have a judge. In the book of Judges, God will raise up a savior to deliver us from our oppressors. Every time we was delivered from our oppressors, we forgot about God and went right back to our folly. And then he caused our destruction. And then he raised up another judge. Each time was a different type of judge. But at the end of the book of Judges, the children of Israel went to war with each other. Benjamin went to war with the rest of the tribes because they became sodomites. Same thing going on right now. And they say they will not give any of their daughters to the Benjamites for what they did. We have no leadership. We have no vision as a people. We have no judges to deliver us from this oppression. We don't have a Dr. King because he led us into the burning house and was assassinated. We don't have a Malcolm X because he led us to the Arabs talking about true Islam and he was destroyed. The leaders that we had all seem to have led us to our destruction. Farrakhan led us to nowhere after Elijah Muhammad died. Farrakhan destroyed all of the progress. Now he's an old geezer, an old hag, talking about Democrats and Republicans, politics, dealing with the white man's filthy, nasty politics, while they shooting us down like dogs. There's no plan. There's no direction. You gotta go to your job and pretend and act as though nothing happened because you don't want to get fired, because they're gonna replace you with the migrants, the millions of migrants that you voted for. Why vote anyway? Why even participate in this society? It's leading you nowhere. It's leading us absolutely nowhere. Total failure, no leadership. All the leaders are sold out, looking for money, looking for their own self-interest, their own personal interest. And then you got the scammers telling you you're gonna get rich, selling you packages and courses, selling you a fantasy, a dream. You're gonna pay your money and get scammed. You got this other scammer talking about hip hop, talking about it was started by Negroes. Hip hop is a bastard culture. The reason hip hop exists is because the Negroes who controlled the blues, who controlled rock and roll, who controlled jazz, controlled funk, gave it to the white people and abandoned and neglected the next generation of Negroes. So we had no knowledge of how to play the guitar. We didn't know how to play instruments because the culture was given and taught to the white people. So what we do, we took the records and chopped up beats and rapped over them. We took the old jazz, rock and roll albums, James Brown albums, and we created this hip hop because those Negroes sold us out and abandoned the future. Just like right now, the Negro from Chicago, Coon Johnson, is giving all of our money to these migrants, ignoring and neglecting this generation, the next generation of teenagers. What the teenagers gonna do? They out here jacking and robbing, kicking in doors, smashing and grabbing. Same thing repeating itself. The previous generation selling out the next generation. The old Negro is selling out the young Negro. Just like when Warwick Dean Muhammad, the leader of the Mosque Cares Muslim American Society, this old Negro in his 80s married an 18-year-old girl. And he died like a dog with his young wife. These old Negroes sold out the next generation. That's why hip hop exists. Because the Negroes who controlled the blues, who had the knowledge of the blues and rock and roll, gave it to the white folks. Chuck Berry taught Mick Jagger. He taught the Beatles. He taught all of them, the Rolling Stones. He taught them all. The blues dudes, B.B. King, Albert King, taught the blues to the white folks. Jimi Hendrix taught rock and roll to the white folks. He went to Europe, taught them everything, and they inherited it. They inherited our culture because the Negroes gave it to them. So we went out there, abandoned the youth that was in New York, who was abandoned by the old Negroes, who was in Chicago, who was in down south, the Earth, Wind, and Fire, and all of them Negroes. They gave all of this culture to the white folks. So the abandoned youth went out there, took their albums, took their instrumentals, and created a bastard culture because the fathers abandon the next generations. Not only did they abandon the households because of the welfare epidemic, they abandoned us in the culture. They didn't pass the culture down to the next generation. That's why we created the hip hop. Just like Black Flight, all of the affluent Negroes who had the education, the money, the prestige, they all fled the black community after integration and ran to the white people communities. And that left a void that was fulfilled by gangsters and pimps, hoodlums. Even the Nation of Islam fled after Elijah Muhammad died, sold all of the businesses to Arabs. So it's all messed up. The old Negroes, that's why I keep telling people we are in the book of Exodus. We're actually in all of the books. We're living simultaneously in all the books in the Bible, but primarily in the book of Exodus because we have the separation of the old Negro with the slave mentality who want to go back to Egypt and be slaves and have jobs. And you have the youth, the young people who want freedom. God said you're going to have to stay in that wilderness for 40 years until all those old Negroes die off. And then Joshua and Caleb was going to lead the youth, the young people, into the promised land. So we got to wait till all these old sellout Negroes wipe out. And we got to recreate this entire culture. We got to throw all this stuff in the garbage. Throw rap music in the garbage. Rock and roll, blues, all of that. Throw it all in the garbage and start over.